What happens when a casual morning show conversation turns into a heated confrontation that leaves everyone speechless? Today, we're diving into the explosive moment that had Kylie Kelce walking off Today with Jenna and Friends after what started as light banter quickly escalated into something much more serious. The show was meant to be Kylie Kelce's opportunity to discuss her upcoming charity initiative and share lighthearted stories about life in the NFL spotlight. Producers had planned a 20-minute segment, expecting an easy, feel-good interview. Jenna Bush Hager came well-prepared, with thoughtful questions about Kylie's recent projects and her experience navigating public life as the wife of Philadelphia Eagles center Jason Kelce. As the cameras rolled, Jenna welcomed Kylie with her signature warm smile. "We are so excited to have Kylie Kelce with us this morning. Kylie, thank you for joining us. And I have to say, you look absolutely radiant today." Kylie settled into her chair, appearing relaxed and ready for a straightforward conversation. "Thank you so much for having me, Jenna. I'm really excited to talk about the work we're doing with the foundation and some of the amazing people we've been able to help." The conversation began smoothly, with Jenna asking about Kylie's charitable work and family life. Kylie spoke passionately about their foundation's focus on supporting youth sports programs in underserved communities, sharing heartwarming stories about children who had benefited from their initiatives. The studio's atmosphere was warm, and both women seemed to enjoy the exchange. "It's incredible what you're doing," Jenna said, nodding appreciatively. "And I imagine having Jason's platform really helps amplify your message." Speaking of Jason, I have to ask about something that's been making headlines recently. There's been a lot of talk about NFL wives and their level of involvement in their husbands' careers. Some people feel that certain wives, particularly those who are very vocal about their support, might be crossing some boundaries. Kylie's expression shifted slightly, though she remained composed. "I'm not sure what you're referring to specifically," she said, "but I think supporting your spouse in their career is pretty normal, don't you?" Jenna leaned forward, her tone still conversational but with a hint of challenge. "Of course support is wonderful," she replied. "But there seems to be this new phenomenon where some NFL wives are becoming almost as famous as their husbands, sometimes overshadowing the actual players and their achievements. I'm curious about your thoughts on that balance." The question lingered, and the tension in the air grew subtly thicker. Kylie's smile tightened as she responded, "I think every family handles their public presence differently. Some people are naturally more private, others more open. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong way to navigate it." But Jenna wasn't ready to move on. "That's a very diplomatic answer," she said. "But I think a lot of people are wondering about the impact this has on the game itself. When the focus shifts from the athletes to their personal lives and relationships, does that diminish what these players have worked so hard to achieve?" Kylie straightened her posture, her voice gaining an unmistakable edge. "Are you suggesting that wives supporting their husbands somehow takes away from their accomplishments? Because that seems like a pretty outdated way of thinking." The studio audience, once quietly engaged, began shifting in their seats. Even the crew behind the cameras sensed the rising tension. Jenna, realizing she might have struck a nerve, attempted to soften her tone. "Oh no, that's not what I'm saying at all. I just think there's an interesting conversation to be had about visibility and attention in professional sports. Some people feel that when family members become too prominent in the media, it can create distractions." Kylie's eyes flashed. "Distractions? So, women supporting their husbands is now considered a distraction? That's really what we're going with here?" The energy in the room shifted sharply. Jenna's co-hosts exchanged nervous glances, while producers debated whether to intervene or let the segment unfold. "I think you're misunderstanding what I'm trying to say," Jenna replied, sounding defensive now. "I'm simply asking about the balance between personal and professional life in the public eye. It's a legitimate question that people are curious about." Kylie leaned back, crossing her arms. "Let me be very clear about something," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. "I came here to talk about charity work, about helping kids who don't have access to sports programs. Instead, you want to have some kind of debate about whether I'm too visible as a supportive wife. Is that really what morning television has come to?" Jenna shifted uncomfortably, realizing her line of questioning had backfired. "Kylie, I think we're getting off track here," she said carefully. "I was simply trying to explore a topic that's been in the news lately. It wasn't meant to be personal." "But it is personal," Kylie shot back, her voice steady but sharp. "When you frame women's support for their families as something that takes away from men's success, that's not a discussion. It's a stereotype. And I don't think we should be normalizing that on national television." The room fell into stunned silence as Kylie stood up, removed her mic, and walked off the set, leaving Jenna speechless and the audience unsure whether to applaud or hold their breath. Composure beginning to crack, Kylie said firmly, "When you sit there and suggest that wives being supportive is somehow a distraction or a problem, you're making it personal. You're basically telling me that I should sit in the background and keep quiet, so I don't interfere with my husband's career." One of Jenna's co-hosts tried to defuse the situation, jumping in with a calm voice. "Maybe we should take a step back and talk about the foundation work that Kylie mentioned earlier. That sounds like such an important initiative." But Kylie wasn't interested in being redirected. Her focus remained laser-sharp on Jenna. "No, I think we should finish this conversation because apparently there's some kind of standard that NFL wives are supposed to meet, and I'd love to know exactly what that is. Should we not attend games? Should we not celebrate our husband's successes? Should we pretend we don't exist?" Jenna's face was flushed, and her trademark confidence seemed to be evaporating. "That's not what I was suggesting at all," she said quietly. "And I think you know that I was asking a broader question about the role of family members in professional sports." "A broader question?" Kylie repeated, her tone dripping with skepticism. "Right. When you talk about certain wives becoming too famous and overshadowing their husbands, that's just a general observation. You're not talking about anyone specific." The studio had gone completely silent except for the exchange between the two women. Even the audience seemed to be holding their breath, sensing they were witnessing something that would be talked about long after the cameras stopped rolling. Jenna took a deep breath, clearly trying to regain control of the situation. "Look, I think we've gotten into some miscommunication here. My intention was never to criticize you or anyone else personally. I was trying to have a thoughtful discussion about a topic that's been in the media." "Miscommunication," Kylie repeated with a bitter laugh. "That's one way to put it. Another way would be to say that you invited me on your show under false pretenses so you could ambush me with questions about whether I'm an appropriate NFL wife. That's not fair, Kylie, and you know it," Jenna replied, her own temper beginning to flare. "I've been doing this job for years, and I pride myself on asking thoughtful questions. If you can't handle a discussion about your public profile, maybe you shouldn't have agreed to come on television." The words hung in the air like a challenge, and everyone in the studio could sense that a line had been crossed. Kylie's eyes widened, and for a moment, she seemed genuinely speechless. When she finally spoke, her voice was dangerously quiet. "Excuse me, did you just tell me that I can't handle being on television because I objected to your inappropriate questions?" Jenna immediately realized her mistake. "That's not what I meant. I'm just saying that public figures have to expect difficult questions." "Difficult questions about my charity work? Difficult questions about helping disadvantaged kids? Because those are the questions I prepared for," Kylie snapped. "I didn't prepare to be lectured about how to be a proper NFL wife by someone who's never been married to a professional athlete." The personal nature of the remark clearly stung. Jenna's professional demeanor began to slip. "I don't need to be married to an athlete to observe what's happening in the sports world," she shot back. "And frankly, some of the behavior we've seen from certain NFL families has been over the top and attention-seeking. There it is, Kylie said, sitting up straighter in her chair. Now we're getting to the real issue. You think I'm attention-seeking? You think my support for my husband is over the top? You think I need to learn my place and step back so I don't embarrass myself or the NFL? The co-hosts were now openly panicking, looking desperately at the producers for guidance. One of them tried to intervene. Ladies, I think we should take a commercial break and regroup. This has gotten a little heated. Both women ignored the suggestion completely. They were locked in a battle of wills, and neither seemed willing to back down. Jenna, perhaps sensing she was losing ground, decided to double down. I never said you needed to learn your place, but I do think there's value in maintaining some boundaries between personal and professional life. When family members become bigger stories than the actual games, it changes the focus of the sport. Kylie stood up abruptly, her chair rolling backward. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. The studio atmosphere had become electric with tension as she remained standing, hands on her hips, staring down at Jenna. You know what the real problem is here? You invited me on this show because you thought I'd be an easy target. You thought you could ask me leading questions and I'd just smile and nod and give you sound bites about knowing my role. Jenna's face was now bright red. Her voice rose defensively. That is absolutely not true. I invited you here because I thought our viewers would be interested in hearing about your foundation work and your perspective on life in the NFL. My perspective on life in the NFL, Kylie repeated mockingly. Right. And apparently my perspective is wrong because I actually show up and support my husband instead of sitting quietly in the background like some kind of... The tension in the studio had reached a breaking point. Producers were frantically signaling from behind the cameras, desperate to salvage what had become a complete disaster. But both women were too focused on each other to notice. I never called you a decorative accessory, Jenna said, her voice growing shrill. You're putting words in my mouth and twisting everything I've said. I was trying to have a nuanced conversation about the intersection of personal and professional life in sports. Nuanced? Kylie let out a sharp, bitter laugh. There's nothing nuanced about suggesting that supportive wives are distractions or attention seekers. There's nothing nuanced about implying we should stay in our lane and let the men handle the important stuff. I did not say that, Jenna insisted, but her protests were falling on deaf ears. You absolutely did, Kylie shot back. And now you're trying to backtrack because you realize how it sounds. But here's the thing, Jenna. I don't need your approval or anyone else's to support my husband. I don't need permission to be proud of him, to celebrate his success, or to show excitement for his achievements. One of the co-hosts stepped in, her voice trembling slightly. Kylie, I think there might be some misunderstanding here. Maybe we can find some common ground and have a more productive conversation. Kylie turned toward her, her expression softening slightly, but her tone still firm. The only misunderstanding here is that I came on this show expecting to be treated with basic respect. Instead, I've been subjected to questions that make me defend my right to exist as a supportive spouse. Jenna, sensing her credibility slipping away, tried once more to defend herself. Look, I think you're being overly sensitive about this. These are legitimate questions that people in the media and fans have been discussing. I'm not the first person to notice that some NFL wives have become very high profile. The word sensitive was the final straw. Kylie's eyes flashed as she took a step closer. Overly sensitive? So now I'm overly sensitive because I don't appreciate being ambushed with sexist talking points disguised as journalism. They're not sexist talking points, Jenna protested weakly. Oh, they're not? Kylie said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. If this were about male family members of athletes, you'd be asking the same questions, right? If Tom Brady's father were vocal about supporting his son, would you call him attention-seeking? Would you say he was overshadowing Tom's achievements? Jenna was silent, and that silence spoke louder than anything she could have said. The entire studio waited, breathless. "That's what I thought," Kylie said quietly. "This whole conversation has been about putting women in their place, about suggesting we should be seen and not heard." "Well, I have news for you, Jenna. I'm not going to sit here and let you lecture me about how to be a proper NFL wife." Jenna made one last desperate attempt to recover. "Kylie, I think you're really mischaracterizing what I was trying to do here. I have enormous respect for you and all NFL families. I was just trying to explore an interesting topic that's been in the news." "An interesting topic?" Kylie repeated, her voice filled with disbelief. "That's what you call questioning whether supportive wives are appropriate? That's what you call implying that we're distractions and attention seekers? An interesting topic?" By now, the co-hosts were openly panicking, realizing there was no way to rescue the show. The audience sat frozen, unsure whether to look away or keep watching the live television meltdown unfold before them. One of the co-hosts finally spoke up. "I think we should definitely take that commercial break now." But both women ignored her completely. Kylie began gathering her purse and jacket, her movements sharp and deliberate. "You know what, Jenna?" she said, her voice steady but laced with fury. "I came here in good faith to talk about helping kids and supporting community programs. Instead, I've been subjected to a thinly veiled attack on my character and my marriage." "It wasn't an attack," Jenna protested, her voice weak. "It absolutely was," Kylie snapped. "And the fact that you can't even admit it makes it worse. You've wasted my time, you've wasted your viewers' time, and you've shown exactly what kind of journalist you really are." Jenna's professional composure finally cracked. "I don't think that's fair, Kylie. I've been doing this job for years, and I've always conducted myself professionally." Kylie paused, turned back, and fixed her with a cold stare. "Professionally? Is that what you call this? Because, from where I'm standing, this looks like amateur hour masquerading as serious journalism." The energy drained from the room. The audience sat in stunned silence as Kylie adjusted her jacket with quiet dignity. Her calmness stood in sharp contrast to the chaos surrounding her. When she finally spoke again, her tone was calm, but her words were final.